All right, hello internet. We're back today with some more tournament game analysis. I've been wanting to go through games, and I've been trying to make a point of doing that recently, especially since I have a big tournament coming up this weekend. The San Diego Open or something like that, but a long time control classical tournament, 3 days kind of thing. So I'm excited for that. I'm trying to play some good games, so I'm trying to be well prepared this week. So today I have two games I wanted to review and record against the same player. One that I played back in January, and then one that I played last week. This is a very strong, up and coming young kid. I remember being a kid and playing in these tournaments against adults, and knowing that whole imbalance of you never know if a kid's underrated, what they're bringing to the table. Clearly, he was underrated. In our first game in January, he was below 1800, and by May, he had already crossed 1900. So, kid is ascending, playing some really good chess, and so I wanted to review these games. And in the first one, I'm playing as black. Let's see. Let me turn off the best. Okay, that's off. All right. Yeah, I don't know if I'll go super in depth, but I just wanted to look through this game again. I hadn't gone through this one since I played it, or since I reviewed it the week after I played it, but I haven't seen it in a few months. So we got Queen's Gambit Decline, just like the game I reviewed yesterday. And my opponent goes immediately for the exchange variation, and knight c3. All right, so I respond with knight f6. All very normal stuff. Bishop f4. This is something I mentioned in the game I reviewed yesterday too. This decision in these openings, because I play also Queen's Gambit as white, so I'm making this decision all the time about whether I want to put the bishop on f4 or g5. And I've been overall liking f4, but this is one of those setups where the computer clearly prefers bishop on g5 as compared to the bishop on f4. And immediately after bishop f4 says, hey, this is equal. So interesting to note. But yeah, and it's not like the computer telling you that it's plus 0.3 or plus 0 really matters much at the level that we're playing. But it's just interesting to note, and something that I've been constantly thinking about where my bishop is better placed. So my opponent also likes this structure, same as me. So we have c6, e3. I develop my bishop to e7. And yeah, again, on the last move too, the computer wanted bishop f5 or c6, but on here, again, it wants bishop f5. I wonder if when it wants c6, yeah, it could just be a depth thing right here. Because yeah, I was wondering if it wants me to try and go for c5 and play it as an IQP structure, which is not really my preference, which is why I go with the c6 approach. But anyway, pretty modest bishop e7 here. Just trying to get a nice playable game going into the middle game here. Castles, h3, bishop f5. All right. Yeah, interesting to note the computer likes this g4 strike, because I guess it's not too weakening, because I'm not going to attack and storm the king side. And so, computers tend to like getting space. My opponent plays the more conservative bishop g3. We trade. Knight bd7. We're just trying to finish our development. Castles, rook e8, a3, knight b6. And yeah, here I don't know if knight b6 is right. You know, it seems like it's fine. Obviously, I'm looking at, especially since this a3 move has been played, it makes c4 even more juicy, right? It makes b3 less appealing because it's not as supported, and then the a3 pawn's under threat. So yeah, clearly I want this c4 square, but what it does do is it gives up e5, which my opponent takes. So again, still, computer says this is even, this is fine. Seems like there's a few ways I could play it. Bishop d6, which is what I go for here. All right, and then my opponent plays this b3 move. So these pawns are feeling a little bit weak here. A3, and then, you know, b3 obviously is stopping the knight, but knight can rotate around easy enough. So yeah, again, we just have a perfectly normal playable position here from both sides. I go queen e7. You know, my idea is here, put some pressure here, put some pressure here. Okay, and then we went into a4. And here I decided to counter that a4 with a5. I was thinking that I kind of get this outpost on b4. That looks pretty nice. Maybe I'll put my bishop there. Obviously a knight would be amazing there, but that's unlikely for any of these knights to ever end up there. But yeah, I thought this would be a fine position. This b pawn is a little bit awkward. Our c pawn is well defended here. So I'm very happy to play this as black here. So we got rook fe1. And here, yeah, here I tried to get a little bit fancy, perhaps. But it's interesting. Computer actually thinks it's okay. So yeah, I went with this knight e4 idea. My thinking is that, you know, even if I'm sacrificing a pawn here, it's not really a sacrifice because now the knight's pinned and then I have stuff like f6. By playing knight e4, I'm threatening bishop b4. I'm just trying to control this square since he just set up the rook here. I was thinking maybe it was better to go bishop b4 first to pin this, but it seems like either one was fine, and it looks like I had the two right ideas for both ways that I could try and put pressure on the board. I'm also obviously looking at f6 with the bishop being loose here. So we go knight e4. My opponent takes. I am supposed to take, right? Okay, takes. And then he avoids capturing. And now this position feels pretty nice for me, right? I have control of these squares. I've achieved this pawn on e4, which feels pretty nice. You know, it's pretty easy for me to back it up with f5. I can boot the knight first if I would like to with f6. I have this b4 square. So yeah, I liked my position here. And yeah, the computer gives me -1, so that's good. So yeah, computer likes just, yeah, any of these moves, trying to put my pieces in good squares, whereas I don't think I had the right idea here. I went with f6, which it gives the question mark here. My idea, you know, obviously I'm thinking about this bishop and maybe giving white a poor pawn structure, right? If they move the knight and then I capture, and then d4 is loose. So I thought that I was achieving something here. But yeah, it doesn't end up going anywhere, and that ends up being a bit of a mistake. So it seems like so yeah, basically computers like any other improving move would have been better. I should have thought about knight d5, because obviously again he can't capture, and then I have the choice of either using this square for the knight or the bishop, or maybe even, you know, the bishop goes there to support an attack into c3. All of these are great for me, and so yeah, it's pretty disappointing to come up with this move and just ruin my position. My opponent finds the right move, knight c4. Knight g4 would have been pretty weak. You know, it walks into f5. Here it's more forcing pieces it's putting pressure on. All right, so so I trade here on bishop takes f4, and and then my opponent finds seems to be the correct move here. Knight takes b6. Right, so now they're threatening both my rook and the bishop. The problem was, if I don't do that, you know, if I take here, then he takes here with check, and you know, then you can see here's that computer line, and all of a sudden white's position is looking fine. Although, you know, I'm not sure why it's plus 0.8. It seems like pretty even to me, but yeah, I'm clearly not achieving the goal that I had, which was trying to double up those pawns and make d4 weak. So, and I think that if I had played knight d5 to prep this first, I would be in much better shape here. So yeah, so I went with the takes. He takes here, and then if I just retreat the bishop, then obviously I give up the rook, which is not preferred. So I go with this rook a6 move. This square is so awkward for the rook, but obviously I'm threatening the knight back, so on captures, and now I achieved the great structure that I wanted, where white has the weak pawn. My rook can come to b4, it's pressuring b3. So yeah, on rook a6, my opponent, I think, makes the right choice and pulls the knight back instead of trading. But now I have a bishop for a knight, and my bishop's pretty nice. So, you know, my position is still okay here. It's just a little bit less powerful than it was earlier, because that knight that I had could have achieved a lot more than just getting traded off here. So yeah, because these squares are just so nice for a knight, and so not having that knight's a little disappointing. So yeah, retreat the bishop, bishop c7. Opponent plays rook fc1, taking the open file. Alright, I play f5, just shoring up the defense here, making sure that, you know, say I want to, maybe I'll take that outpost with the queen now, right? Making sure I have enough defenders on e4, preparing for him playing f3. Alright, my opponent goes knight d2. Not a very forcing move. You know, the knight seemed fine when it was placed here, but it's kind of hard to find a plan for white, so it makes sense for him to pull it back. Maybe he's looking to move the queen up. So yeah, knight d2. Then I go bishop d6. I'm thinking now, okay, now I want to rotate my bishop into the position here. And now my opponent brings the knight back to c4. I played bishop b4. And just a time check here. My opponent plays very fast. We're at move 24. They still have an hour and 6 minutes, and I'm down to 46 minutes. This is a game where we started with 90, or an hour 30, and there's a 30-second increment. So yeah, so I'm a little bit lower on time, 20 minutes lower, but not in time control or time trouble or anything like that. That's right, we're back at it again. Dead droop. All right. So yeah, again, my position I think is fine here. But yeah, so I achieved this square for my bishop, but on the other side, my opponent achieves a great square for his knight. So he plays knight e5. But at the same time, you know, this knight could be under threat if I start undermining things a little bit, but I have to watch the f7 square off of this check, right? So I play rook f8. The computer says I could just play rook a8. I guess the idea is on check here I go king f8. Because yeah, if I went king h8, then I run into trouble. But yeah, my rook is just still a little bit awkward here. So it makes sense that it wants me to bring the rook back. But yeah, so I was going here to cover f7, trying to be prudent. All right, my opponent goes queen e2. And now, yeah, again, the computer wants me to bring this rook back. I had some ideas here that if I left the rook on a6, there might be some lines where I play c5 and I can swing the rook across to the king side maybe, or bring it here. So I felt like, given that my rook was already here, I could kind of make use of it Computer doesn't agree with that idea, but that was my thinking here, and I don't think it's the worst idea. But yeah, I'm having trouble coming up with a plan as well. I go rook f6. You know, just trying to activate this rook, just trying to see what I can shake out of this position without getting anything too weakening. You know, f4 at some point maybe I strike with, but right now feels like it doesn't achieve enough. Alright, rook f6, rook c2. My opponent just wants to double. Alright, now I bring the rook back to a8. Then my opponent goes rook d1. So yeah, they, you know, maybe they're thinking about, is there a world where they want to push this? Maybe if the knight wasn't here. I think we're both just maneuvering our pieces around, trying to probe something out and figure something out here. But my idea here, now if I swing the rook over here, now I've doubled on the f file. Now this makes this f4 move a little more appealing. So my opponent counters with f4 to try to block things up, to prevent my own f4. But what that does do is it allows me to capture en passant. Then queen takes. And then now I played f4. So the computer, interestingly, this is definitely a critical spot where all of a sudden the position's more open than it was before. I need to figure out, am I going to open the f file here? You know, am I going to try and get rid of this knight? Do I want c5? So yeah, it's still kind of hard to figure out exactly what I want. But yeah, the computer likes just bringing the bishop back, a little more conservative. Rook here, you know, getting the pressure here so that the bishop coming back is more powerful. These all make sense. It looks like it slightly dislikes f4. In response, it's fine with capturing. Interesting, because I thought this was going to be good for me on the capture. So he goes at e4, which I think makes a lot of sense. Strong pawn center, trying to just challenge me, say, are you going to dislodge my knight by bringing this back? Maybe that's the right approach here. But yeah, this pawn would be really strong if I could just keep pushing it down. The queen's doing a good job blocking it. But yeah, it's really hard to know what's going on in this position. Just a very unusual one, right, with this pawn structure. But yeah, so here, so I'm thinking about all the different ideas. Am I trying to get in c5? So I play rook e6, which is nice. The computer thinks that's the best move here by a little bit. And the idea is pretty clear, putting pressure down here, maybe setting up bishop d6. All right, so we got rook f1, which the computer very much dislikes. It would have preferred rook e2 or rook f2. Wonder what this one is so bad, because I don't think I took advantage of it in the right way. Looks like I should have then gone for rook d8, putting pressure here and just sacking this pawn. That's interesting. But yeah, you can see this position is ready to explode at any moment. All right, so what do we do? Rook f1. All right, so my idea was, you know, this knight is loose if I can boot this, so I'm going to play c5, which I think is a logical decision, but appears to be slightly incorrect. So yeah, the two ideas that it wants are just going after the d pawn for the most part. And yeah, saying that if I get rid of my f pawn, get this knight is weak, this pawn is going to drop. Yeah, that's just the best way to liquidate the position. The bishop defends this back rank stuff from b4. This bishop's nicely placed. So yeah, my position was fine here. But yeah, I played c5. Yeah, the computer just wants knight d3 and then trade some pawns off. He goes rook e2. And, you know, here I'm feeling like I'm making progress. You know, my opponent spends a lot of time on this move, gets down to 46 minutes, and I'm down at 27. But yeah, I thought I was achieving something, and now I could capture. And interesting, again, the computer wants these moves, going after this pawn, but without capturing with my pawn. So I went with the capture, which just seems like the most logical approach. But I started having problems really quickly. And even now, just looking at this board, it's hard to understand why everything fell apart so quickly. And that's obviously what the computer identifies when it says that c5 was a mistake and that I shouldn't be capturing here. But yeah, captures. My opponent pulls back to knight d3. And then I played a move that seemed quite logical, right? We have the threat coming into f4. I'm currently up a pawn, right? Because I just got the d pawn. So I'm feeling like I've made progress. And this pawn is still loose. So I was thinking that, you know, if we go into an endgame, but I get my pawns doubled here, they're not super strong. And still that's going to be a challenging endgame. So I thought, let me pull this bishop back. Seems to be a very logical move, right? Defend this, keep him from capturing. But as you can see, the eval jumps to positive for white as long as he can find this move, which my promising youngster opponent does. He shoves e5 down the board here. Very powerful move, very nice find. And all of a sudden, you know, things are a little bit sketchy, right? We have the queen that's looking to come in here and fork things. You know, this is always the downside of pushing your f-pawn, right? Is that all of a sudden you can expose yourself to some awkwardness. So yeah, on e5, you know, I decided I couldn't take because this was just going to be too weak after something like queen d5, so I played here. So yeah, let's confirm this, that queen d5 is, yeah, queen d5 is just crushing, so that's why I couldn't take there. So I pull back, bishop b8, and my opponent infiltrates, and all of a sudden, all of my pawns are just weak and hanging, right? Everything is hanging. So yeah, even though I'm up a pawn, white's position all of a sudden is feeling much more comfy. You know, this pawn is well defended. It's cramping my position. My rook is pinned. So yeah, really nice move by opponent finding e5 to free up the d5 square for the queen. So yeah, now we go. So bishop e8, queen d5. So here my idea was, all right, I'm losing this pawn anyway, so let me try and screw up his structure or force some kind of retreat. So I play f3, rook takes, queen takes. But yeah, again, my pieces are still just so poorly placed. Everything is hard to place. You know, it looks like, yeah, the computer likes queen c7, queen f7. I had this idea. I went, you know, bringing the queen back, which seems like it's, you know, just as bad. Everything's bad in this position, but just as bad. Bringing the queen back. So my opponent brings the queen up. And yeah, this is just, you know, if he can bring the rook over and then the queen can come down. So I'm thinking I bring the rook back. You know, maybe I'm thinking about rook f8. And then he just pushes e6, right? Just making this very dangerous. But all of a sudden, right, my bishop hiding here in the corner might be threatening some stuff. That could cut off a back rank thing. There could be something with the queen. And and I'm starting to get very low on time here. So I'm at about 9 minutes. My opponent has still 37 minutes. So I'm starting to get in real time trouble. And over the course of this year, I've been getting better, I think, at my time management. But yeah, since about a year ago, I started playing tournament chess again. So getting used to how to manage my time in a hour and 30 game, when you have an hour and 30 minutes, is something that I was still getting the hang of. And here in January, I was definitely still struggling with my time management. I've been doing, I think, slightly better the last couple months. But yeah, so my idea, I'm running low on time and I'm trying to create counterplay. So I went queen c7. Looks like I could have played rook f8. Obviously, I'm just scared of allowing this, but on here, can he just play this? I guess, because you can just sack, and then on check you have this. Okay, that's pretty nice. So I didn't think it was right to take the rook off of e8, but it looks like just to get the activity, maybe I need to. But yeah, I played queen c7 with very clear attacking ideas, right? The queen can come here. That would force the king here, and then I could pin the queen to the king. Or I could do it in the other order, rook f8, and then if the queen moves, then I have checkmate. So I'm drumming up counterplay, even though, computer says it's +2, but this is still not easy. So this is all stuff that was, this e6 pawn is scary, but all of a sudden my bishop's doing something. So my opponent cuts off the queen by playing knight e5 here, which is a very logical move, right? You want to stop this. But it does give up this back rank. And so it was just so hard for me to find the right idea. Do I want to check here on the back rank first? Looks like that. It gives us even. And then, these are about the same evaluation. So I go with the rook f8 idea. Opponent plays queen g4. And all of a sudden, right, so if they had gone queen e4, looks like they can hold things together as well. So what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to sack this pawn, but he can't take with the knight. So yeah, what happens? What if he takes with the queen? Then I have queen c5 check. So yeah, if I can get this pawn out of the way, it opens up another diagonal, a lot of threats on his king. So that's a nice idea. So then white has to counter it with this. Check here and take it. And all of a sudden we're in an even game again. And maybe I would have found the moves right if, actually no, I'm playing good moves here. Even in this time trouble. So he makes a blunder, right, with queen g4. Because now all of a sudden I see there's so many different threats that are ready to pop for me. I wanted to open up this diagonal, and it looks like computer likes my choice. I was debating between queen c1, and again I have 3 minutes. So I'm in trouble here, time trouble. But I'm looking at d3. I'm looking at queen c1. I played d3. Now I have some big threats. This. The rook's cutting this off. It's hard for the knight to move. So he plays e7. A bit of a desperate looking move, but trying to deflect me from this attack. And then here, so in time trouble, I've played the right move a couple moves in a row, gotten myself to this plus position, and then here I blunder it away. I do not find the right move. I was looking at queen c5, I was looking at bishop a7, I was looking at queen c1, and yeah, and you can see this move goes from -5 to +5. And yeah, I'm down to 1 minute here. But yeah, it's just so hard to find the right idea. But yeah, so we'll go back to this position in a second. What happens is bishop a7, the game is quickly over. He goes king h2. I take, but I'm just in trouble here. because now we're just setting ourselves up with all kinds of poor alignments here. So he goes queen c4, king h8, knight f7 check, and you know, if on queen takes here is mate. So now all of a sudden I'm in all the back rank trouble. I took with the rook, just to try and, you know, confuse things a little bit. And my opponent, I don't have his time written down here, so I'm not sure if he was getting low on time here as well. But you know, he just takes here, and then queen c8 with checkmate. So yeah, big fighting game here. So now let's look at that critical position again, because yeah, once I made this mistake, my opponent did a great job finding the right moves to punish it. So I needed to not allow that to happen, and taking my bishop off of this h2 square seems like it was key. So going at it with the queen c5 line, then if the king comes here, then I can take this with check, g3, and then I take here. Now I'm just crushing. That's interesting though, because like, you know, my instinct is like, I want to play rook f2 and try and mate, but it looks like there's not quite a checkmate. It's not fast enough to stop this. So you actually do have to just take, but obviously you're up a piece and that's a winning game. But, you know, it's hard to see a position like this and not play rook f2. And then if they went for king h1, then I have rook f1. Yeah, so this is killing, because once you take here, if you force g3, then you have mate. And yeah, I was looking at this line. I think what I missed, yeah, I remember looking at this here, and I was trying to calculate if I had a mate here, and I couldn't find it. But yeah, I had the move order messed up. If I had calculated that then I take here, then I have the mate. And so that's why he has to go here. And if I'd seen that, I would have played this queen check first. And then the queen check on c5 is key over this one, because this time you're not attacking this. Yeah. So yeah, queen c5. Crushing here. But yeah, tough one to miss, but you know, it's some exciting fighting chess. It went from a very positional battle to all of a sudden just tactics going crazy. You know, hope it's possible that if I wasn't in time trouble, I would have found some better moves. But who knows? I actually found a lot of the right ideas, even with very little time, but I couldn't quite bring the combination home by finding the right move with the queen c5. Yeah, just being under the gun of the time pressure there and having to pick between these all strong looking attacking moves and calculate all the lines. It's a tough spot. But yeah, definitely an exciting game. All right. So now, you know, motivated by that loss and knowing that, you know, that these kids are coming on strong, I had a rematch with this guy. Now we were playing this game last week, so in May 2026, and this time I had the white pieces. So I wanted to go through this one briefly as well. I think this one will be quick, but it's a fun, aggressive, attacking game that y'all might enjoy. So here we go into d4, knight f6, c4, e6, that kind of Nimzo structure. But then my opponent takes it into a QGD, so I'm fine with that. This is what I mentioned in the last one where I played this bishop f4 as well, which has been something I've been enjoying recently, but it seems like it's a little bit early to commit the bishop to f4, and so I should probably be. I always am going to bring the knight to c3 in this opening, but I'm not always going to put the bishop on f4, so I should just be doing knight to c3. So I'll try and improve that move order for my future games in this line, which I'm sure I'll have many. But yeah, I play bishop f4, c6. As soon as I see c6, I'm happy. I love playing this side of the Queen's Gambit. If they're gonna play with this like triangle Slav kind of defense setup, I'm very happy to play this. And a lot of players play this with black because it is very solid, but it's not super threatening. So now I'm just playing all the normal developing moves, and here I capture, which I've been talking about this recently, both in a video and with some other folks that I play with, about trying to time this capture correctly. And interestingly, the computer actually likes knight takes. If we look at that for a second, so my opponent takes back with the e-pawn, which is what I expected. And this is just like that other game I analyzed a couple weeks ago. But yeah, now I just have this very clear minority attack on the queen side idea. Very solid structure. I love playing this with white. But yeah, almost nobody does this, but the computer likes taking here. And it's interesting because it feels like this should be the same as with the knights there, but it seems like this is slightly preferable because now you've freed up the knight, which now allows the bishop to come out. And so it's a little bit better for black to be less cramped by forcing that knight trade. And if white doesn't go into the knight trade, then you have to burn a tempo to retreat the bishop. What if we just have like a normal move like this, and then they can hit with c5. That's interesting. But then you take on the IQP, and this seems to be just fine for black. But I would be fine playing that position with white too. I think a lot of people don't like taking on the IQP, which I understand, but the computer doesn't mind it. As a human, it's hard to play those positions. But yeah, my opponent takes back e-pawn. I played h3. This is just always a solid improving move. Covers this square once this knight comes out, and also just gives my bishop a place to retreat here. All right. So yeah, there's no fireworks to start here. Very just normal developing moves. Nothing too crazy. Castle. And then here's kind of the first weird move of the game. The other game that I analyzed that I played a couple weeks ago, my opponent played the knight maneuver, which I think is a pretty common idea here. And then he, was working his way toward pushing the knight into e4, getting a little aggressive on the king side, which makes sense because this is kind of the alignment of the pawns, right? All the black pieces look like they're looking out this way. So very natural thing, a natural plan here. And instead my opponent goes with this bishop f8, which feels much less natural for the development here. Maybe they're looking to fianchetto the bishop, but I don't love this plan. So yeah, I just play normal queen c2, and now queen e7. Clearly, he's trying to gear up for knight e4 and backing it up, but this just doesn't seem right. The queen placement feels off. The bishop still can't really get out. So I'm happy with this for white. The decision I had to make was, do I want to go here and pin the knight and continue hampering his plans? Very clearly he wants this idea. So even though the bishop looks like it's controlling a lot of good squares here, because black is blocking their bishop from getting out to d6 with the queen, I felt like I could do this. If they could just teleport the bishop out here, then they're probably feeling fine with their position. But then if they have to spend another tempo to move back and maneuver stuff out, then I have time to get my attack started here. So I go with the bishop here just to try and set my opponent back and actually induce, I think, what is a mistake. So h6, and then g5. So, you know, he very clearly wants to achieve this knight, but I don't think that it's the right call. This is just too weakening here on the king side. So I bring the bishop back. So now my bishop has gone 1, 2, 3, knight e4, and then bishop h2. So now I've had 1, 2, 3, 4 bishop moves in a row. My opponent has achieved what he wanted with knight e4, but he's also given himself these glaring weaknesses. So I consider those tempi well placed to have achieved these weaknesses. So now we continue with our opponent playing f5, trying to shore up the knight here, maybe f4 ideas. But this move is scarier if the rook was here, but it's not. It's a bishop here instead, so it's not really doing all that much. So even though it feels like black is starting to cook up an attack, I thought I could play this. I don't need to be desperate and do anything crazy over here. There's no way for me to counterattack the center, so let's continue our queenside attack. So rook b1. Now he plays knight df6, which I definitely don't think is right. I think he has to maintain control of e5 with using, you know, bishop g7 or something. Interesting, the computer likes either fighting back on the queen side or playing h5. That would be the aggressive way to go. I thought he was going to go bishop g7, very natural move controlling here. So after this, you know, bam, I really want to take control of this very powerful outpost. 95. The other idea I had here, which I don't believe the computer ends up liking, but even though this knight is so strong, this bishop is going to be a really nice defender of the king over here. And I was thinking if I can trade off the bishop, right, because I can do this fork, then I get the bishop to e5, and that's just going to be a monster. And you'll see that's actually what I achieve in this game. So yeah, here my opponent takes, which again I don't think is right, because now my structure is even better placed for attack. I can counterpress the center with c4. The b7 pawn's under pressure. So, but it does allow, you know, him to clear up his development a little bit. He's really fighting for this e4 square, but I think the rest of the pieces just aren't coordinated well enough. So I went with this idea, which the computer doesn't love, but I think it's pretty strong, because with all these weaknesses around the king, what is he going to do about this bishop? It's just going to slice right through his position. This bishop is blocked right now, but it's kind of looking menacing here. My pawn is going to come up here, and hopefully d5 gets weak. So my opponent goes queen here. So I trade, rook takes. I throw in this tempo here just in case he wants to play f4. I can get my bishop out ahead of that. Then we got queen e7. Then, yeah, now we hit with that c4 move. So when we do this trade, this pawn is going to become weak, right? The queen can come here. There's always threats of me pushing f3 and pushing this knight back. Trying to go for f5. This position is falling apart a little bit. It would be really great if I could trade, get a rook to c7 or something. But yeah, lots of attacking ideas for me, not a ton for my opponent. You know, maybe he needs to try and push back with one of these guys. But yeah, my opponent makes a logical move, bishop e6, trying to shore up this pawn. If he's able to achieve the bishop on d4, that's a nice attacking and defending square. So that idea makes a lot of sense, but now b7's looking a little weak. So I'm thinking that I'm going to play f3, and what I get here is that if knight retreats, I take f5, and on knight here, I have captures, and bishop or rook takes b7. I'm now giving up this really powerful bishop, but in return, I win a pawn, and I get control of the 7th rank. So I think that that's a worthy trade for my strong bishop. And then my opponent wants to confuse things a little bit, and so it throws in this capture here. But I take back, and I'm fine with this. Again, the knight's still under threat. I think this might end up being even slightly worse from my opponent, because if they drop b7, now c6 is way weaker, whereas they could have had that pawn on d5. But I think they wanted to confuse things and bring in potential for me to mess up with tactics. And then I think they had to play knight d6 here and just accept the lost... and yeah, you can see this is that line right here. And I think they had just have to accept that and then try and set up a defense, hold this pawn. I'm probably going to be trying to swing the rook over and then use this 7th rank as my attacking avenue. But yeah, my opponent goes with this knight f6 retreat, which, you know, it just doesn't seem right. You know, the concept is if I capture, the queen doesn't have to capture, I think. I think that was his idea. He can actually capture with the rook, so the queen defends this. But I still have a way to deflect the queen off of the 7th rank. Capture, capture, take with the rook. And then I still get to maintain this amazing bishop. It's not as brutal anymore because then he does have knight d7 to try and boot it out. But what I found here was that, you know, I can pick up the pawn with this combination. But I thought, what if I switched it up and took with the rook instead? On captures, then I take with the bishop. I give up an exchange, but I get a pawn. I know I'm going to pick up the f5 pawn also, so it's, you know, a piece and 2 pawns for the rook. But this attack just feels like it's going to be devastating with these bishops. So after a little bit of thought, I decide to execute this. Sorry, we have a yelling cat in the background. She's ready to go outside. I will take her outside after this recording. Oh, and now she's going to say hi, maybe, on video. Is she going to walk across? There she is. All right, that's Mari. Okay, so yeah, so we hit this. I decided to go for this. I mean, it's not even really a sacrifice, but kind of sacrifice. But it just seemed too powerful to get to not do it. This just seemed like too fun to play. And so now my thought is the black king is weak. Excuse me, Mari. The black king is weak. If I can just get one more piece into this attack, he has to be finished. You know, a piece, or if I can, you know, get a pawn down here. So I'm just trying to shore up the pressure. So I know that I have queen takes here in my back pocket. Interesting to see what how the computer would attack here. It likes rook b1. My idea was the 3rd best computer move. But my thinking was, if I hit with this f4, no matter what, I'm locking in f5. I'm going to win this. The knight's never getting out of here because it's pinned. And so by doing this, I can actually free up a spot for my rook to either swing across and rook lift out of here, or if I trade these, you know, if f4 and then I trade, maybe I end up capturing this f5 pawn with the rook even, giving it a place to swing over, or just adding pressure to f6. So I thought it would be good to throw in f4 first. And also the plus side of making moves like this is it can get your opponent to make mistakes. Clearly his position's in a lot of trouble. It's really hard to hold this. And then he kind of panics, does not want to allow this capture, so he plays g4. I play queen takes f5. So now I don't mind this capture because my queen can actually capture this backwards. The knight cannot capture because of the pin. So now I decide to get that pawn. And now I think he makes the game. I mean, it's already pretty much over, but this is cementing the loss here. Takes with the pawn. You know, perhaps trying to... Perhaps trying to create some weaknesses here around the king. But it's really nice that even if my rook gets out of the way here, the queen cannot go to b1 because of this queen. So I'm never that worried about getting perpetual checked out of the win here. So I just ignore this pawn, actually. Play rook f3. And now we're just committing to the attack. Our opponent goes queen e7. And rook g3, king h8. And now I'm trying to calculate the correct way to finish this game. There's a couple ideas, right? I can capture, threatening this guy, But then I thought, okay, the queen can go to g7, so maybe that's not the most clear way to win. So then I'm looking at this g6 square, so I say, okay, I want rook or queen to g6. Both of those threaten h6. They have pressure on f6. So the first move I was considering was rook g6 because of this dual pressure going on here. The queen can't guard from g7 because then you just take it. And so yeah, this clearly would have been winning. It looks like that was mate in 7, but I went with queen g6 instead, which looks like it was slightly more accurate, which is nice. With the clear idea that, you know, on queen here I have captures, then the king is stuck, so queen here, and queen takes g7, checkmate. So he doesn't really have a way to hold on to this h6 square. My opponent throws in a last-ditch attempt here with this h2 check. And even though right now this knight is pinned, I was looking at if there was possibly some issues in some lines of like, are there some way that the knight can check? That was more of an issue here if he had thrown it in earlier, like here if he had played h2, where I have to think about, you know, the knight check revealing an attack on my queen or something. But the other idea that he was getting at with this h2 is on captures, you know, there are some lines where queen takes, queen here, and I'm actually not able to capture on f6 because of the pin. And so I think he was trying to set up some of those ideas. I'll show the computer line in a second that actually deals with that in a calculation that I did not see in the game. But there's a really cool line there. But I took the practical approach, and I said, I'm just going to, you know, I'm not going to capture it. This is the more obvious way to say, you know, now on queen h7, now on queen h7, I can capture, and I don't have any of these issues of these pins. And so, so yeah, basically black has nothing that they can play here. Black resigned here. But what I want to show was I could have even taken this, and then on something like, you know, if they just play a random nothing move, I actually have queen takes here. Queen here looks like it's saving the game, right? Because in the previous line we had takes, forced to checkmate, but now you can't take. But there's this absolutely devilish move. And here, rook g7, bishop g7, checkmate. Which I did not see that in the game. That would have been sweet. But yeah, really cool line. But yeah, when you have a position that's this forcing and this dangerous, there's always going to be some line that works. So you just have to find it. And yeah, it's just always nice that in any of these, like, if he takes the hanging bishop, I can take here and the knight can't retreat because the pin. So yeah, just a really fun attacking game. So I was happy to have made the decision here to go with the more fun and aggressive forcing move here. Rook takes b7. But yeah, clearly he was already in a bit of trouble before that. But I think that this move was the one that kind of won the game. So I was pretty happy with that. And yeah, and happy to even my record against this talented youngster. And also, you know, as I mentioned at the start, you know, his rating has jumped up. He was under 1800 when we played in January. Now he's over 1900. So yeah, I'll get a few more points for this win. So, oh, hi Garbin Hook. What's my elo? My USCF rating is about 2100. I think I just crossed 2100. But yeah, a pair of fun games here. I think I'm gonna stop the video here. But yeah, I just wanted to go through those two games. You know, we kind of had the white side and the black side of a QGD, and all these games that I've been analyzing recently have been QGD. So it's just been something I've been working on a lot lately. And I expect to play a bunch in this tournament that's coming up this weekend. So I wanted to make sure that I was sharp on my lines. I think Oh, so good. Well, thank you. I've been playing chess for a long time, but I'm still practicing, still learning. Um, yeah. What's your elo, Garbin hook? But yeah. So anyway, Queen's Gambit declined, or Queen's Gambit. I'm expecting to play a lot of games in these lines coming up. I want to take 2 takeaways and lessons for my games both this week, my Wednesday night game that I'm expecting to play from the black side, and then for my games over the weekend. I'm really thinking a lot about where to place my bishop on f4 or g5 in the Queen's Gambit from the white side. And then from black side, when I'm trying to play those b6 lines, I really want to think about when the right time is to actually capture back on c4. That was what I was reviewing yesterday. And thinking about, if they capture on d5, when I should be taking with the knight. So those are the 2 ideas that I've really been working on and trying to understand. And I think that these games where I've been having success against this poor light squared bishop just make me feel better about the way I'm playing the black side of these and trying to really use the queen side fianchetto. I really like the way that those games have gone, and I'm not so happy with the black side of the bishop being on e6 kind of thing. Oh, dude, you're 2100 too. That's a fantastic rating. You don't have an over the board elo? I would bet that if you play over the board, you're probably going to be in the, 18 to 2000 plus range. So that's a very, very strong rating for sure. Yeah, my chess.com is also like between 2000 and 2100. My over the board is actually higher than my online rating, which is not the case for most people. There's a kid at our club who right now he's like 1750, but he's like 2300 or 2400 on chess.com. But these kids are just good at online chess. I'm not. I'm bad at fast chess. I'm not good on the computer. I'm way more confident playing slow over the board games where I can think for an hour and a half. So yeah, my over the board record is certainly better than my online record. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording here, but maybe play a couple quick blitz games for fun before I take the cat outside. All right, well, thanks for watching.